Hola mi gente, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to be filming this video because I had my Instagram friends pick the books that I'm going to be reading this week and the poll results are in. I was so excited that I woke up at 7 a.m. this morning to start reading one of the books because I've been wanting to read it so badly and it won. I'm going to reveal the books chosen as we go along, so I'm gonna do the first book first and I'm gonna tell you what that book was and then we're gonna read it, then I'll come back, so forth and so forth. So I'm gonna film it now because I don't want to know what my reactions are as I'm reading them, right? I am genuinely very nervous to see how this is gonna pan out. I've been wanting to read all three of these books for so long, so you can probably already tell by the emojis. I made it so obvious. I really wasn't trying, but those were the only emojis that I could think of, and it was the Hurricane Wars. So I feel like it was a landslide. Like, look at that. The entire day I was looking at the polls, it did not change. The other book wasn't even close at any given time. So this is the one that I actually woke up at 7 a.m. to start reading because I was so excited to read it. I've been wanting to read it so badly. I would have started reading it last night, but Hoopla made me wait till midnight to borrow the audiobook, and I was like, I'm gonna go to sleep and I will just borrow it in the morning. So that's what I did. I'm actually 20% through already. I am gonna wait until I hit the 50% mark to come and give you guys my thoughts on it, but so far my jaw has been on the floor twice and we just started the book. With all of that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and pass you along to future me that is gonna give us a reading update on how it's going for this book. Hola mi gente, I have great news for you. I am on chapter 16 and I am devouring this romantasy, the tension, the banter. It is a true enemies to lovers. You know how hard it is to find a book that is an actual true enemies to lovers, like they have a valid reason for hating each other? Well, that's Hurricane Wars for you. This book follows two main characters that are literally polar opposites when it comes to everything. Like, he's dark, he has the power of shadows, she's light, she has the power of sunlight, and they're each other's kryptonites. Like, her magic is the only thing that could potentially unalive him. So his entire task, like goal in life, is just getting rid of her and people like her, annihilating him from the planet. Like, bye-bye, goodbye, you're dead. I'm getting way too excited. She is the only one left of her kind because the shadow benders took care of her entire population. So she's trying to find a way to get rid of the shadow benders and dark magic wielders because they are trying to control the entire population with what they call these like warships. Let me tell you, these warships are insane. I don't want to tell you what they have going on because I'm like, if that pulled up in front of my house, I'm dead. I would not survive that. If somebody came up to my house with a warship like that, like that's on a whole different level. So far, I am loving this book. I have been reading this on and off. Every single second that I have been able to spare today has been to read this book. I'm eating it up. And don't even get me started on the banter between these two because they absolutely hate one another. And she has a valid reason for this liking this man, okay? And every single time she says something like awful to him, like, I'm gonna unalive you, or like, do you say stuff like this to people that are getting ready to unalive you? And he'll be like, no, I just do it for you.
The woman was too stunned to speak.
I am geeking out so hard because I love them. This is what you guys get. Me a mess blubbering about this book and how much I am enjoying it. I am going to go put together my TBR card and continue listening to this, but it's very likely that I may finish this tonight. You guys are gonna think I'm psychotic because I finished this book last night. I couldn't believe that it ended when it ended. Like, I was like, really? That's where... I understand wanting to leave us in a cliffhanger, but that was disrespectful. It was like somebody was playing your favorite song and they stopped at a very weird part and you weren't able to listen to your favorite song. Now that this is my favorite book, I'm going to end up giving this a solid 3.75. Not quite a 4. If you see my Goodreads, it's gonna say a 3. Now, I would definitely still recommend this book for people. I just had a few issues with it, and I feel like my problems that I have with this book will probably be answered in the next book, which is already released, thank the Lord, so I can go read that next. Let me explain why I gave this a 3.75, because the author did do an amazing job with her descriptions and the world building. Where I had a problem was, one, with the romance. You cannot take me 90% into the book for the romance to develop and then for miscommunication to ruin it. Like, miscommunication is the freaking backbone of this book. If you don't like miscommunication, you might not enjoy this book. And I think that's probably why I had such a big issue with it, because I was like, you guys are able to talk about such important things, but you can't talk about your feelings. That just doesn't compute in my teeny tiny little brain. It wasn't adding up. I did like the world building and like the warships and the war and the fighting between the different countries, and there's one country, I'm gonna call it a country, it's probably like an island, a small space, but it makes more sense in my head if I say country. There is one country that's kind of like power hungry, and they're wanting to mine the specific gemstone from other countries, so then they're just wreaking havoc upon these other colonies and just doing whatever they want, which is the shadow wielders. And our FMC for this book is the only light wielder left that can actually like fight against them. And I believe her name was Taliesin. Taliesin is just trying, yeah, that's how I'm gonna pronounce it. Taliesin is just trying to find a way to get rid of the shadow wielders, and then an agreement is made and the war kind of ceases for a while. And then 70% of this entire book is just Taliesin learning how to use her magical powers. Bro, some things just took too long for me in this book. The first 60% of this book, I loved it. I was enjoying the world building, getting to know the characters, getting to know the conflict between everybody, the tension between the main characters. I really was here for all of that. And then after we hit the 60% mark, it was like still the same thing. Nothing had changed. And I was like, why haven't we developed into more? Why haven't you given me more about the characters' backstories and why certain relationships are the way that they are? I truly love this story and how much potential it has to be a great romantasy. I just did not expect for things to slow down as much as they did after we hit the 60% mark. And then it didn't pick up until we had 50 pages left of the book. That is ridiculous. I will still be reading a book 2. I do want to see how everything is going to be wrapped up. I feel like this is going to be a trilogy. If this is longer than a trilogy, I may have to go throw myself off a bridge, because I don't know if I could take more slowness. Maybe she'll pick up in book 2. I don't know. I have to go read that one. But overall, I'm gonna give this a 3.75. I would still recommend it to other people. Maybe I'm just being nitpicky. The ending just disappointed me. The last 50% of this book, just throw it in the trash. I'm gonna stop talking about this book now. But if you read this book, please let me know so we can talk about it in detail, because I don't know, I have very conflicted feelings, and that's where I'm gonna leave it at. Welcome back. How did it go? Did we love it? Hopefully we loved it. If we didn't, this is gonna be really embarrassing to look back on, thinking that I was going to love that book. I feel like I probably loved it. If I didn't, I would be really shocked as to why I didn't love it. Helen, get it together. The second book that we're going to be reading, again, you could probably guess this one by the emojis. Honestly, I feel like people probably picked it because of the little hot tamale. But it was actually The Loser's Duet Part 1. So I did start this book, I would say months and months ago. I got to page 9 and then I put it down. I did a soft DNF. But you guys have spoken, so we're going to be reading this next. I have no idea how this is gonna go. I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope for the best. And I will see you guys back here as soon as I finish this bad boy. Hola mi gente, I'm here to give you a reading update. I made it to chapter 30 of The Loser's Duet Part 1, and I'm gonna say right now I love the boys and Jess can go kick rocks. So in The Losers Part 1, we meet all of our main characters, which there's 4 boys and 1 girl. The girl is Jess. She is like the popular girl in high school. She was a cheerleader, go-getter, dated the quarterback for the football team, all the regular stuff that the popular girl would do. And then our four boys, which is made up of Mason, Vincent, Luca, and what was the other guy? Mason, Jason, Lucas, and Vincent are our four boys. And they're kind of like the school misfits. They got bullied for their sexuality, for their home lives. A lot of them have very sad home lives. They were abused in multiple ways. And so they've kind of banded together because they're the misfits from the school. And then we have Jess, who's always been kind of obsessed with this group of misfits because she has been raised to be the perfect preppy girl, to be perfect in every sense that there is to be. She can't mess up, otherwise her mother is gonna be like down her throat telling her to be better, eat less, you're too fat even though she's very skinny, your hair's not blonde enough, you're not pretty enough, you're not wearing enough makeup. That's how she's been raised to be. And she sees the boys just being who they want themselves to be from their core roots and their values. She kind of wants that, but she doesn't know how to be that, like how to be who they are, the way that they are, I should say. There's no way that she doesn't have some major character development because I don't understand why she is the way that she is. So now we're finally understanding what has attracted her to the boys, and I think that a lot of people can relate to, like always wanting to be a people pleaser and be what other people want you to be. That's tiring. Nobody wants to do that forever and ever. I don't know how this is gonna work out. I'm actually really intrigued to see how everything's gonna plan out. I really want them to all be happy, but there is another duet. There's another part to the story, so I feel like this is not gonna have a happy ending. Okay, I finished the Losers Duet. Did I sprint through this? Yes, I did in fact sprint through it, devoured it. I actually really like this book a lot. I'm gonna give it a 4.5. It's not one of my favorite books of the year, and those are my 5-star reads. It's just books that I absolutely become obsessed with, but this one is pretty fantastic. The author has this magical way of writing her characters in a way that you're just gonna fall in love with them and you're gonna want to root for the underdog. There is multiple underdogs, so you don't really know who's your favorite, and it's like, oh, here's a whole group of people that you just are in love with and you want the absolute best for all of them. It is kind of like a polyamorous relationship vibes that we have going on here, so it is extremely spicy, very explicit, fun adult scenes, but it's very emotional. The trauma that each character is dealing with is kind of unexpected. I didn't know it was going to be as emotional as it was, but it truly was. And you know, Jess, I feel like she had the most character development, which I'm really happy that she did. At the beginning, I could not freaking stand her. She was so annoying to me and irritating, and by the end, I could understand her. I could relate to her and why she had been acting so nasty towards the boys. By the end, it made so much sense, and her character development was beautiful. I cannot wait to see what's gonna happen in the second duet. I'm really happy with the way that this book wrapped up, and I'm actually glad that she's doing 2 books, because this one, you kind of just really get to know all the characters and like their dynamics and how they work with one another. And I feel like in book 2, it's really gonna all come to a head, and there is some issues in the background. There's some villains that are trying to take away all of their happiness, and I feel like they're gonna come into play in book 2. But I loved it. This was a winner. 2 down, 1 more to go. This is so weird because I don't know if I'm loving these books so far or not. Like, I'm genuinely scared for myself. This is the last one that was picked, and the emojis really did not do it any justice because I didn't know what else to pick for like monster besides that creepy mask. I don't even like that mask emoji. It literally creeps me out. But the last pick is Court of Nightmares by K.A. Tucker. K.A. Knight. I didn't say that. No, I didn't. It wasn't me. Shh. You watch your mouth. K.A. Knight. So this is actually a Y choose, and it has vampires in it. It takes place at like a court of nightmares. I read Den of Vipers by this author. I believe it's the same author. Yes, so it is the same author that wrote Den of Vipers. I really like Den of Vipers. I don't try to judge that book too hard either. Like, it's one of those books that you just read it for the vibes. And that's the mentality that I am putting upon myself going into this story. I'm like, it's just for the vibes, Helen. Go off of vibes alone. It is a Y choose. And I feel like the last time she wrote a Y choose, I loved it. I have nothing negative to say about that story. So I am hoping for the best. This is also the last one. So Fingers crossed that I loved all 3 of these books, but especially this one. And you know the drill. I'll see y'all later. Hola mi gente, I'm here to give you an update on Court of Nightmares. I've actually made it to chapter 35, so I'm almost like the 50% mark, and I'm dragging feet for this book. The way that the characters were described at the beginning of each scene where they're introduced, it's kind of like, okay, here's 2 chunks of paragraphs of what they look like, and then that's it. That we're never gonna mention what they look like ever again. The last time that I read a KA Night book was like very long ago, and I was getting into dark romance, especially why choose books. Like I hadn't read a lot of those types of books, so now that I have, there's like I don't know, I would say like my palette has gotten more exquisite, more top shelf instead of lower shelf, and this is kind of giving lower shelf. That sounds really mean. I'm really not trying to roast this book, I promise you. So this book follows our female lead, which is Althea. I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. That's how I am pronouncing her name. And she is a vampire. So she's a born vampire, and then when you turn the age of 18, then your mate is picked for you. And it's kind of like your soul just knows who your mate is. I mean, if you read any other books with like mates, you know that feeling that I'm talking about. So she is being introduced to society because she's finally 18 years old, and she finds her mate. Her mate turns out to be one of the kings for the night courts, and he's pretty much like, no, you're a weakling. I don't want anything to do with you. I refuse you as my mate. When the king refuses her, they are in front of hundreds of other vampires because this is a big event. Imagine a ball but make it vampires, and then the king was there, and she gets really embarrassed because she is rejected by her mate. And if you are rejected by your mate, then your soul starts to slowly wither away, because I found this part really weird, but they're vampires and they can only feed from other vampires, and then if your mate is picked, then you can only feed from your mate. So then since her mate rejected her, she couldn't feed, and she had to then go figure out a way to try to survive because the only person that was supposed to love her didn't love her. She also doesn't have any family. She has one best friend, which is the only family that she had left. So she had a very sad upbringing because her mother died at childbirth. And from there, the story pretty much just takes off into her trying to live her life without a community because she is then shunned from the vampires community. And you would think from there it would get really interesting. It gets really freaking weird. There's a specific phrase that has been mentioned. To me, it felt like it's been mentioned 150 times. It's only been mentioned 27 times. I'm reading this on my Kindle, so I literally had to look it up to see how many times it's been mentioned because I cannot. My brain is saying, please stop. And they're said together. It says blood and bodily fluids together, consecutively. It's 27 times. You know where I'm going with this, right? This is a smut book. If you want a book with vampires and a good storyline, plot driven, this is not it. This is not it, love. If you want something that's very spicy, doesn't really have a plot, you don't really care it doesn't have a plot, you just want the spice, this one's a winner for you because that's all it's giving right now. The plot is taking a long time to develop for me, and at the beginning we had a lot of time jumps, and I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna be really fast paced. We're gonna get into it, and no. We're still trying to figure out what her destiny is. I don't know. Oh man, I'm trying so hard to like not trash talk this book right now. There's 7 guys and 1 girl, so I understand why there's so much spice in it, but at one point it was an entire 4 chapters of them going at it. I cannot make this shit up. So I don't know. I know I told myself I was gonna judge this book based on the vibes, and I'm trying really hard. I promise I am. It is Sunday, so I want to get this done today so I can wrap up this vlog. It's been very fun, and I cannot believe that we're here on the last book. It's been an interesting ride, to say the least, but I will come back to you guys later. I'm gonna go drink my hot cocoa now. Somehow, some way, I survived this book. This was an experience. It is a smut book with a little bit of fantasy here and there and vampires, but I kid you not, the first quarter of this book We're getting to know the characters, there's a world building, you're being hooked into the storyline, and then it doesn't go back to the storyline until the last quarter of the book, and that's being generous. In between that, which is 50% of the book, is just straight smut. They got creative. Funny enough, I would suggest this book to people just to see what their reactions would be, or if it's a very specific person. If it's someone that I know loves smut books, then this is gonna be right up your alley. If you like Den of Vipers, you would definitely like this book. Just know that it's not as plot driven as Den of Vipers. I personally love Den of Vipers. It's one of my favorite books of all time. This one just didn't quite live up to the expectation for me. So this book is going to get a 3 out of 5 from me. A solid 3. No points, no if and buts, it's a 3. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. There was just so much smut in it that I was like, where's the story? It was non-existent, but I did have a good time reading this book. If you ask me about this book in 2 months, I can't tell you anything more except the phrase, that's all I remember. That's all I'm gonna remember because it was said so many times. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. A quick recap on all the books that I read. Wait. I didn't read this one. Why are you here? What was the third book that I read? Let me go get that one. Alright, here's the quick recap of all the books that I read. So we have, in no particular order, The Loser's Duet. I ended up giving this a 4.5 out of 5. I did love the story. It's very emotional. And this is one where it's really spicy, but it's also very plot driven. And I think it had a good balance between the two, so that I did enjoy it a lot. And I can definitely see myself reading the next book in the series. It's just a duet, so it's nice and short. But these books are very thick. So I think I'm just gonna get the audiobook for book 2 and just finish it up that way. The Hurricane Wars, I ended up giving this a 3.75 out of 5. Now I did love this book as well. I like the world building, I like the characters, the magic system is pretty freaking cool. The warships are awesome, and I can definitely see myself recommending this book to other people as well as reading the other book in the series. My one favorite thing about the story is that it's a true enemies to lovers. They have valid reason for hating one another, and they do try to fight the attraction that they have for each other, but there's just a lot of miscommunication, and I think that's one of the reasons why I gave it a 3.75. If it hadn't been for the miscommunication, I would have probably gave it a higher rating. It's like every time we got close to something happening, then it was like you took 3 steps forward and 10 steps back, and that drove me insane. But besides that, that's the only negative thing that I have to say about it. And the pacing at the end, besides that, it's a pretty good book. And last but not least, we have Court of Nightmares. So this is a smut book. That's exactly what it is. You're gonna read this because you want a really spicy book with vampires in it. This is not plot driven at all. This is a book that you're gonna read for the vibes and the vibes alone. So this one, like I just said, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5. I did like this book. I like the characters. There are more books in this series and I do want to read them, but I don't know when. I don't see myself making the series a priority. I can see myself reading this series for fun whenever I need like a palate cleanser for something that my brain doesn't really have to work hard to kind of get the grasp on. I had a lot of fun. This was great. Thank you so much for everybody that helped me pick these books, and I can definitely see myself picking my weekly reads this way in the future. Stay tuned to when I post them on my Instagram. If you don't follow me on Instagram, then I will have my link below so we can be besties on there. But thank you so much for supporting and watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful day.